I think it's time. That we all lower our expectations for go-home shows. The go-home weeks, the Raws and SmackDowns leading up to the PLE, no matter the PLE, whether it's Great Balls of Fire, whether it's Survivor Series, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, Backlash, Night of Champions, doesn't matter. And that includes SummerSlam. We all, I think, and it doesn't mean that it's giving WWE a pass, but I think at this point, we've seen enough of a sample size over the last several years, including the Vince McMahon era, that the go-home shows are no longer what they used to be or what they have been meant to be in the past. When there was a pay-per-view model before the WWE Network in 2014 or whatever it was, which I bet we're all missing that $9.99, no? Unless you're overseas. But before this subscription model, WWE would have to sell you on individual events, where the individual events would cost anywhere from $40 to $70, depending on the magnitude of the event. I remember WrestleMania being about $70, and we had to split it amongst our friends, and that was the way that it worked back then. But the pay-per-view model has only, in relative terms, been erased recently and replaced by this subscription model. And with the subscription model, it feels like you're not being charged as much. And therefore, WWE doesn't feel really pressured, I think, to sell you on a particular event so much as they are selling you on just subscribing. And here's the amount you have to pay per month. But that's per month. I mean, think about what the pay-per-views used to be individually. The idea being that you just say to yourself, yeah, for $30 a month, I get a ESPN Unlimited and get all the other sports, including WWE. Sure. But of course, you have to subscribe to get the USA Network if you want to watch SmackDown, Netflix if you want to watch Raw. So the subscription model has really poisoned our society. Another topic for another day, where we all just really don't own anything and are leasing everything from music to cars to houses. Go down the line. But they don't have to sell you on an individual event anymore, which I think is part of the reason that go-home shows are not as important or as forward as they should be, as well as they should be selling you, they aren't. And yes, this was even during the Vince McMahon era, but last night on Raw was one of the worst go-home shows I've ever seen. The crowd was dead, but I don't blame them. I really don't. The only things that were somewhat passable were the Brock Lesnar Obafemi segment, which I really didn't hate, and the Seth Rollins Roman Reigns, which is kind of more of the same. Didn't help, didn't hurt, just kind of kept the course. But yes, I'm going to pile on. It needs to be said. You've seen this all over social media already, but let me dogpile with the rest of the group. I don't care if it's dogpiling. This segment that we saw with Danhausen, with Joe Hendry, and the midgets was one of the worst television segments. And it's not hyperbole saying this. I know that The Observer has said this. JD from New York, those that watch him, have said this. I haven't listened to The Torch or any other big ones, but perhaps they've said it as well. But this was, by a mile, the worst segment I've seen in a long time. It's the stuff that non-wrestling fans think pro wrestling is. It's why people who aren't fans of pro wrestling won't watch wrestling or ever think they'll get into it or even give it a try, because they think that this is the shit that's on TV, and we got it last night. And I'm not going to give them a pass or say, well, it's Danhausen, he's goofy. You included Joe Hendry in on this. It was a song and dance routine. But Joe Hendry's a separate issue. We'll get to that. You brought in female dancers I don't know, some LA Rockettes. I don't know who the fuck they were. I could care less. And you brought in boxer Ryan Garcia, that 99% of us have no idea who he is. This, again, not only did, of course, you brought a celebrity into it because WWE they can't help themselves. TKO can't help themselves but bring a celebrity into everything. But this was god awful in a way that made me embarrassed to ever call myself a wrestling fan. It was secondhand embarrassment. It was a masterclass in secondhand embarrassment. Those of you who experience it watching Raw, well, you got a big dose of it last night. The Minihausens, hey, they're out there doing their job, but I'm not putting this on Danhausen. I'm not putting this on the dancers. I'm not putting this on the midgets. I'm not putting this on Ryan Garcia. I'm putting this squarely at the feet of creative. And you may say, well, who cares of one segment? No, this is emblematic of a larger issue. But there is no pass. There is no excuse for this segment to be aired. I understand Danhausen is a money machine with his merch. I get it. WWE TKO is just unabashedly money hungry, and they're not afraid to tell you that. I get it. He is a merch mover, but you can't concoct, or how could you sit in a boardroom, a Zoom meeting, whatever, and concoct this segment? I understand Triple H is the head of creative. Many, many people are putting this squarely at the feet of Triple H. He's the head of creative. Who else is there to blame? Don't forget that Mark Shapiro back in late April after WrestleMania said publicly that TKO can and does involve itself from time to time in creative. Not everything. And I'm sure it's more of the high level stuff. But if Danhausen is speaking their language of making them money, they probably have a hand in this. I can't imagine Triple H feeling this is a good idea. In what world? It's gotten sillier and goofier over the weeks with this Danhausen mobile, his backstage antics, playing mad scientist, electrocuting people, and some of it has been a little bit charming, but it's been largely backstage. This, I don't know how, as an adult human, and you're sitting there going, what's a good entertaining segment for Danhausen? Oh, I know. Let's have him come out and do a choreographed song and dance routine with a guy that is a former NXT and TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and bring in dancers that have no business being in there, a dozen midgets, and have the crowd try to sing along. It's inexcusable garbage, and I will second some of the people who say whoever came up with this should be fired, because this is so egregious that if you gave this a pass or you came up with this or had any hand in choreographing or executing this, you have no idea what professional wrestling is. You have no respect for it. You have no knowledge of the history of pro wrestling. You don't know what makes it great. You don't know what the viewer wants. Who is the audience for this? Genuinely. What audience demographic are you targeting with this garbage? Preschool? I'm genuinely serious. Is it the preschoolers just getting out for the day, and they're going to go home and have a juice box and some crackers and watch this? I really don't know. But whoever's responsible, I mean, I'm going to put some of it at the feet of Triple H. I understand he's really kind of the figurehead and takes the lumps for some of the TKO decisions. If they really wanted to make an Unreal series that was truly what they are trying to market it to be, which is unfiltered, spy, kind of a hidden cam type of inside look at the creative. If they really wanted to do that, I would love to know the creative decisions that TKO made that Triple H didn't have a hand in. And since he's at the head of creative and it comes with a position, you take the blame and the praise, even when it's not your decision. I would love to know what TKO has, and we all know it had to do with Pat McAfee. Pat McAfee was the direct result of TKO putting their fingerprints and getting their grubby hands in one of the main events of WrestleMania. We all know that disaster for what it was. We know what happened with WrestleMania 41 and John Cena and the disaster that was the end of WrestleMania 41 Night 2. But whoever had a hand in this, there's no coming back. It has been critically panned. People in the audience have been making videos about having secondhand embarrassment sitting there. Imagine as a grown adult, you're sitting there with friends, not family members. You didn't bring little kids. And you're sitting there watching this bullshit. You bring a friend or two and you spent a bunch of money to get there, walk in, merch, food, parking, and you walk in and this is the garbage you were treated to. I understand it's one segment. The rest of the show wasn't great either. So it's not as if this was balanced out by a whole bunch of genius creative for the rest of the night. We'll talk about that. But imagine you spent all that time and money to go to WWE and you get this. And they're hearing it. Don't think they're not hearing this. They're hearing all of it loud and clear. And they deserve every bit of criticism that comes with it. It is the worst of Danhausen. They're actively, like it or not, they're actively killing his character and overexposing him. Keep him backstage. And if you're going to bring him out to do a match, which you need to, he's a wrestler, you can't have him out in Danhausen mobiles and cursing everybody and doing these song and dance routine as if I'm at an elementary school play. It is just horrific. Embarrassing doesn't begin to describe it. I don't know what this was. One of the worst segments I've ever seen on a Monday Night Raw in my 30 years. So I will say that. So that's off the bat. As far as Joe Hendry goes, he is he's collateral damage in all this. They have not done a good job bringing him up. They brought him in for the Rumble at one point, and then they took him back and put him in NXT. He went to TNA, back to NXT, popped in at WrestleMania as Randy Orton's opponent. Massive pop. They finally bring him to the main roster after he cooled off, which is a great time, of course, to bring someone to the main roster when they're cold. And what do? They stick him in these song and dance routines on a weekly basis, as if he's the second coming of Elias. What are we doing with Joe Hendry? As I said, former NXT champion, former TNA champion. He can wrestle. Yes, he's got a great entrance theme. What are we doing with him? What was he brought here for? So Joe Hendry, I feel bad for. And we'll get to a little bit more of this segment in a little bit. But welcome to the show. This is SummerSlam week here on the WWE podcast. If you want to go ad free, you can do that at patreon.com/WWE podcast. And you can go and get all of your content ad free heading into SummerSlam. You can follow us on X as well at wrestling_audio, or just search us the WWE podcast on X. Also, one more thing. If you want to join the team and review NXT on a weekly basis, the NXT spot is still open for anyone interested. Just send me an email, mailbag@wwepodcast.com. Give me a 5-minute audio sample and we can chat. Alrighty. Let's talk about Monday Night Raw. Good God. But previews and predictions coming this week. Big week. Posting every single day, probably through SummerSlam. All right. So we talk about the beginning of the show here, and it had Lesnar and Obafemi, and it was the weigh-in. Obafemi comes out, and security and police were inside the cell, and I say security and police very loosely. I should say the local wrestling talent dressed in costumes were inside the cell, And then Pierce announced Oba's weight. Brock Lesnar comes out. And Lesnar stood outside the cell and locked the door. Obafemi was left in the ring, and Lesnar laughed at him. And he said that Heyman said there was a change in plans, and Lesnar held the key. And that was kind of it for Lesnar and Obafemi. They didn't actually have any interaction, which I'm fine with. I didn't need to see them in any kind of physical altercation. Lesnar just said to him, "I'll see you at SummerSlam, bitch," and left. And Oba said that, "Run away like you always do." And he said he won't be locked in the cell with Lesnar. Lesnar will be locked in the cell with him. Did somebody come up with that and pat themselves on the back and broke their back? Did ChatGPT come up with this? We've heard this before. I mean, it's not a super original line, but they have beat that to death. Okay, got it. Clever. Okay, like, he's not locked there and there with me, or I'm not locked in there with Lesnar. Lesnar's locked in there with me. Okay, cute. Heard it about 17 times from Obafemi over the last 3 weeks. Got it. Anyway, Lesnar headed to the back. He flipped off. Lesnar flipped off Obafemi, and Oba then just roughed up the police officers. At least, well, that's what Michael Cole said. They were. I guess they were. I get the unarmed, of course, and he put them down, nearly killed one, but I shouldn't say that. The one that he tried to powerbomb, it was not the fault of Obafemi. Obafemi actually saved his life by not throwing him on his neck. Credit to Obafemi there. Even if it was Oba's fault, I haven't analyzed it too closely. He didn't just go slop mode and just throw him down anyway to not make it look bad. He prioritized the health and safety of that person. There's something to be said for that. He could have easily just said, "Oh, I kind of fucked up here. I'll just throw him down and we'll move on to the next one." No, he took the time to redo the move, and I appreciate that. Yeah, it looked like shit, but would you rather have somebody maybe paralyzed on the ground, or what happened there? Let's use our brains. So it happens. Fine. But then he chokeslammed one of them. That guy took a good bump, and the other ones just got knocked to the ground. I mean, Obafemi has roughed up more security and police in the last 2 weeks than most in their careers. And of course, we're all just, since it's pro wrestling, supposed to just forget about the fact that if they are truly police officers, then Obafemi is going to spend a significant amount of time in prison. Why can't they just do security? Just do the security guards. It's a little bit more in the realm of belief. You could still face assault charges in theory, but for assaulting a police officer, that's a felony. And he committed like a dozen of them. Again, I'm not angry about it or ranting. It's just like, okay, it's fun to kind of see police officers who aren't really police officers get their ass kicked. But can we just call them security? All right. Anyway, fine. It was fine. I don't think we needed the cell. I really don't. I know they brought it in, and that's happened before. Bringing in the Hell in a Cell, the Raw or SmackDown before the event, it's nothing new. And it's cool to see the cell, but the only use for it was having Brock be able to avoid Obafemi and play the heel, but it wasn't needed. They didn't really utilize the cell at all. And there are high expectations for that match. If they don't bust through something or fight on top of the cell, and it's just contained to inside the cell, people are going to be very disappointed. It's almost an expectation at this point. It's almost just the bar has been set at said level where you are expected to bust out somehow, break out, door breaks. Somebody has to come into the cage for some reason. A new referee needs to come in, and then they take advantage of the door open and they get out. And then the next thing you know, they're fighting on top of the cell. It's just expected. If they don't, it will be, especially if there's no blood. Imagine this, no blood. It ends in 5 minutes. Nobody fights outside the cell, and Obafemi wins. I mean, I know most are expecting Obafemi to win, and he probably will. A very high confidence in that, but that would be the worst case scenario. And it's a scenario, though, unfortunately, that's on the table. Okay, so it was an okay segment. But in the grand scheme of things, based on this Raw, this was an excellent segment. If you're comparing this segment to the rest of the show, this was just awesome. It's that's kind of sad. But we get the first match of the night, which had Braun Breaker and Austin Theory take on Otis and Akira Tozawa in a non-title match. 9-minute match with Braun Breaker and Austin Theory winning, and the finish was Theory holding down Tozawa. Breaker runs the ropes and spears him, and he covers him and gets the 3 count. And then they rough up Tozawa until Otis saves him. And then Otis put Theory down, and he ends up being distracted, of course, by Maxine and looking like a fool by being duped, 2 or 3 times now by Maxine. Theory grabs a chair, slams it on Otis, and we're supposed to believe, I guess he hit him in the head with the chair. I guess that's the story here. Maxine's fitting in nicely. I'm trying to find some positive here. Maxine is fitting in nicely, quite nicely, with the Vision. With Austin Theory specifically, their chemistry on air is undeniable. They just do. And I know that Maxine is not actually in a relationship with Austin Theory, but if I was Maxine's husband or boyfriend, I'd have questions. There would be questions, certainly. But hey, this is a group that has no real identity right now. The Vision went from Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker and Austin Theory at one point it wasn't Austin Theory. It was Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, don't forget about him, and Paul Heyman. Hell of a group. And then it kind of morphed into Logan Paul. And then there was of course, they had everyone turn on Seth. Seth is injured. Then they have, they bring in, as I said, Logan Paul and Austin Theory come aboard, and then they get injured. Bronson Reed gets injured. Some of them come back. Now Paul Heyman's not there anymore. They bring on Maxine Dupree. They don't have an identity anymore. What's their goal now? Like, they don't need Paul Heyman. I mean, Paul Heyman adds to any segment he's in, any group he's in, any individual he's managing. But we need a kind of redefining of what the Vision is, given they've gone through so many iterations and injuries and people leaving and turning and coming back, and they need something to kind of ground them again. The Vision is a little bit lost. I'm not saying they should be disbanded. I feel like they haven't really even got off the ground, given they've gone through so many iterations. It feels like they never truly got traction to take off because of untimely injuries, mostly. So keep an eye on Bronson Reed. There's a name you haven't probably heard in a while, right? Okay, well, let's go on in this beautiful Monday Night Raw. We got some backstage stuff with Knight. I don't care because I don't need to hear from Knight right now with all he talks about. It's not his fault, but creative only gives him bloodline, and that's it. We have comedian Gabriel Iglesias. I don't give a shit. Sean Evans from Hot Ones. Matt Barnes from the NBA, a former NBA player. I don't know who the fuck that is. I don't care. But they're all shown in the separate locations in the crowd, because we got to get our celebrity shots in. And yes, these were done during Vince McMahon's era. I agree. But it's even more annoying now because they put them in storylines, and we'll see that in a little bit too. All right, a little bit of a promo here from Io Sky, featured in a Women's World Championship match with Liv Morgan. It was fine. Not much said there. Javon Evans and Rusev was the second match. Javon Evans wins in 11 minutes. A decent match, actually. Javon Evans winning is fine. Rusev, wasn't brought back to win a whole bunch. He was there to be a kind of a nostalgia act that is still at the top of his game, but is more there to help younger talent get over. And Javon Evans, incredibly young, incredibly athletic. He uses the OG cutter, and he hit a stunner. I don't like that. I know Kevin Owens used it. I'm fine with him using it. I know John Cena used it. I hated when John Cena used it. I think a woman, did Becky Lynch use it at one point too? I forget. But now Javon Evans, no. There are very few people who should be able to take that move. It should have died with Stone Cold, but I don't like it. If it's not a finish, don't use it. Just keep it in your back pocket for a house show if you want to have some fun on a non-televised event. But he's incredibly athletic. We know what Javon Evans' trajectory is. We'll see if he can get there. Alrighty. So Seth Rollins was shown looking in a mirror backstage while Cole said he and Reigns would go face to face. That's an interesting take. That was the same position that Stone Cold, speaking of, was in prior to him turning heel. So could Seth be going back to heel? He's already default to heel to a lot of people because he's going against Roman Reigns. But all right, the Joe Hendry and Danhausen concert. Again, I talked about this at the Open in detail here, but the only other thing I didn't talk about again was Garcia. Ryan Garcia joined the dancers, and he acted like he was playing a guitar. He slammed the guitar over Hendry's back. And then JD and Dominic entered the ring, the heroes of the whole segment, and attacked Danhausen and the Minihausens, and he hit a frog splash on Danhausen. Fine. I mean, we got to get celebrity involvement. No one could have told you who Garcia was. I don't want to hear, he's big in the boxing world. No one fucking watches boxing. Nobody. You may watch MMA, not the same thing. Boxing is an extremely niche sport. It's not, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that anybody could do it. No one cares. I'm just saying that in the terms of ranking of popularity in sports in the United States, it's like, if there were only 10 sports, it's like number 9 or 10. It's not a sport that people really pay attention to anymore. Outside of these spectacular events like Jake Paul taking on Mike Tyson, those kind of just attraction matches, not necessarily the daily grind of people up and coming who are young and could be the next big fighter. There hasn't really been a big breakout boxer. Maybe this guy is it. I don't know. But you can't tell me you knew who Ryan Garcia was. You're lying. I mean, maybe you really watch boxing. Most of us are going, who? Who the fuck is this guy? Okay. But we got to get our celebrities in. So I think TKO may have met their quota. Rey Mysterio and Ethan Page. Ethan Page beats Mysterio in about 12 minutes after a creative finish. I will say that. Rey went for a 619 and Ethan pulled the ring skirt up to block it. And Rey, with Rey on the apron, he then hit his egoplex. Again, it's just a fisherman's suplex. Does not look devastating. I would recommend that he change it. It's not very exciting. I'm an Ethan Page fan. I will say that I've said this for the last several months, that I think he's a sleeper of somebody that could be elevated to the next level before most people think he will be. I'm not saying he's going to be a world champion. I'm just saying he could get a little bit of momentum sooner than later. That's my just kind of sleeper pick. It's fun to get one of those every once in a while. But the egoplex, it's a fisherman's suplex, or a kind of a weak brain buster at best. Bro, choose a different finish, please. Okay. Liv Morgan was in a promo. She says she's the girl everyone underestimated and overlooked. And she said some may consider her an arrogant champion, but when you have her resume, you just don't care what people think. And Morgan says she knows how good Sky is, but she intends to remind everyone that she's the greatest of all time. Okay, fine. Again, nothing really advanced here. The best you could say about any segments here is it just kind of held the hype of whatever match that it's promoting steady. Didn't help build it. Most of them hurt. This kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, fine. We're ready for Liv Morgan and Io Sky. But it didn't get me more excited for it. Danhausen, again, in a segment here, and he and the Minihausens were laid out in his lab. Adam Pearce came in and told Danhausen to give Dom the money back, and he said he wanted a human money's on a pole match. And Danhausen asked if he'd ever seen wrestling, and Pearce agreed to it and added the stipulation and said he needed a drink. Oh my God. A human money's on a pole match. Can you imagine the shenanigans in this match? Can you imagine the bullshit? Now, maybe they learned the lesson with the backlash last night and continuing into today with all the negative press they've gotten over this segment. They won't include 86 different magic tricks and Minihausens and Minihausen mobiles and whatever. Maybe they'll just have the goddamn match and Danhausen loses. I mean, I know he's 17-0 or whatever, and maybe that's his thing. He goes on an undefeated streak, and I've heard a lot of satire about, he's going to beat Goldberg and all this stuff. Like, I don't know what they're going to do. I really don't give a shit who wins this. I don't care. And think about also where Dom fell from. The fall from grace for Dominic Mysterio has been something people have also really forgotten about. But, okay. Then we get an interesting segment here. Jimmy and Jay. Jay ran it back. We need to stop asking him to do this. When Jay asks if he should do it, can the crowd just boo him? Please? I don't know what they are anyway. Babyface, heel. To WWE, does it even fucking matter? I don't know. But Solo Sikoa was in the crowd making the bow noise, and Solo said he didn't see the bloodline because the real bloodline has him in it too. And the Usos didn't stand a chance. Jimmy said Solo was acting like he doesn't want to be back in the bloodline and told him to make it easy on himself, run the plays or else. Yeah, everyone's like, well, else what? You know, like, what are you talking about? Solo asked if they were going to send him a warning shot or a yeet for 30 minutes. And he asked why he'd want to return. I mean, Solo in this segment is just good here. He said he loves where he's at. He said the LA fans love where he's at, and that got some cheers. And Solo said the Usos tell Roman Reigns that he can kiss his ass. And he mentioned that he'd be teaming with Royce Keys, LA, and another partner, LA, and then the music cued. And Knight said his heart doesn't pump purple piss for the Usos family drama. And Knight said the Usos screwed him out of a title match, and they screwed Royce Keys on SmackDown, and that he'd see the Usos at SummerSlam. And Knight turned and teased before saying, and he removed his jacket. Knight and Solo came in and got the better of the Usos. Jacob Fatu comes in, super kicks Solo, and Fatu hit some running hip attacks. Royce Keys comes out, and he put Jay down. And then Fatu and Royce Keys approach one another, and it ended with Solo coming in, hitting getting a Tongan death grip, and kicking Fatu, and hits Fatu with a Samoan spike. Royce Keys hits a spine buster on Fatu, and a BFT gets hit as well on Jacob Fatu, and that was it. So kind of all over the goddamn place. The only thing that's good about this segment, first of all, the Usos, what are they? The Usos and Fatu. How am I supposed to feel here? What are we? I don't know. Can anyone coherently tell me the story of just linearly? What am I supposed to feel based on the logic and the story that's been told? I don't want to hear all the shades of gray. Okay, in pro wrestling, we don't need to play that fucking game. When I hear shades of gray, I hear I didn't do a great job trying to make them good or bad, and the crowd's not reacting very well. So I'm just going to try to tell you that, well, in real life, there's shades of gray. Yeah, no shit. Not everybody's good. Not everybody's all bad. But in pro wrestling, we like things to be pretty easy. We don't watch pro wrestling to dig into the minutia of, well, you know what? Let's sit down and talk about the pros and cons of this person's personality. Are they more good or are they more bad? Who should we cheer for? Just tell us. And if you're doing a good enough job, there won't be ambiguity in the crowd. Shades of gray leads to non-reaction. Don't give me the shades of gray excuse. And right now, Roman, well, not so much Roman, but we'll talk about him next, or in a minute. But Fatu and the Usos, I don't know how we're supposed to feel about them. I genuinely don't know. They're with Roman, but then they act like heels that we love LA Knight, but the Usos and LA Knight have been feuding for 6.5 years. Fatu was kind of a baby face. He faces Roman Reigns. He's not a heel officially, but people boo him because he's facing Roman Reigns, but then he joins Roman Reigns and we're all like, oh, okay, you're cool now. But then he is challenging against LA Knight, and we like LA Knight, and then Solo's back to being, or not back to, for the first time, a baby face. It's all over the place. And I will say again, of all this, the most interesting character by far is Solo Sikoa. By far. He's got more of a loose, easygoing attitude. He's got a new color scheme for his outfits. This Solo Sikoa, whatever this is, as we have all said, if you've seen the reaction, I agree. We should just let this one ride. Because we've seen the kind of serious, stern Solo, the Solo who is in the bloodline and then runs his own group, and that group disbands. This is a reborn Solo. So I'm definitely ready to see what this one's about. That was by far the best part of this segment. Okay, Sol Ruca and Raquel Rodriguez for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. We have Raquel win. She gets her face busted. Her nose broken, I would assume. Sol Ruca loses. Sol Ruca champion for 57 days. They did nothing with that championship run. Beats Becky Lynch. She did nothing. Absolutely nothing with that run. Why would you make her a champion? Tell me. She's been in WWE, 3 years? In total? Not just on the main roster, I'm saying just generally. I mean, I'm guessing they just didn't feel she was ready. Or they've got bigger plans for her to take her out of that title picture to put her in the world title picture. I don't know. But given the fact they haven't given her much mic time and she hasn't done much as of late, that's how you know you're going to lose the championship. When you haven't defended it in a while and they haven't done anything with you, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, someone gets an opportunity, that's a really big red flag that they're about to take the belt off of you. And that's what happened here. Raquel, I mean, she did a nice job. The match was fine, I guess. The Tejada Bomb, fine. 10 minutes, and Rodriguez celebrates with Morgan and Perez. Fine. I don't know what this is about. I really don't. And I'm happy for Raquel. I really am. But it feels like they start a story and there's no follow-up. You want an example beyond Sol Ruca winning and they don't do anything with their title run? Lyra Valkyria turns heel. Has a halfway interesting heel character and they've done jack shit with her. She beats Bayley at Saturday night's main event and then goes into the abyss. Where the fuck is Lyra Valkyria? Someone who actually had some momentum. Did some great pre-taped promos. This is the stuff I'm talking about. Follow up. Where is it? I'm looking. So, Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns here. They have some of the back and forth stuff. I mean, I'm just kind of tired of hearing about it, honestly. There's not really much more said to each other here than that wasn't already said. Okay, he called him an asshole. Who cares? Whatever. I mean, Roman called Reigns an asshole. I'm sorry, Roman called Seth an asshole. Who cares? They talked about cashing in Money in the Bank. He said he's going to send Roman's whole family, home in tears, and he hopes Roman's family is there again on Sunday. And that's really what set him off. It ends in a brawl, and Roman hits a Superman punch, a spear. He takes an inordinate amount of time to just kind of meander over and get a chair. That allowed Rollins to recover, and bam, stomp on the chair, and that's it. So Seth Rollins stands tall, and he's gotten the better physically of Roman over the last few times that they've brawled, and tells me that Roman's probably winning. And that's a monkey he needs to get off his back, because I don't know the next time that these two are going to lock up. It may be a long time, if ever. So this analysis, I have to say, does say that it was a decent go-home show. I hate to say it, but I'm looking forward to post-SummerSlam more than most of the SummerSlam matches at this point. The big matches should be fun, but the company has just not been firing on all cylinders creatively. Yeah, you think? It was, I mean, again, this, had it not been for the Danhausen segment, it was that bad. You may be saying, well, what's one segment in the rest of the show? A segment can reach a level that it's so bad and mismanaged and misguided that it ruins the rest of your experience and how you view the overall event, even if it was a small part of the event percentage-wise. Something can be that bad. It really can. If you want an example of what I'm talking about, you're like, oh, that's just, no. Okay. Hey, remember WrestleMania 41? Remember WrestleMania 41? I'm old enough to remember that. And the night 2 card was actually really, really, really good. And the main event, it was heavily expected that you were going to see The Rock interfere, do something between Cody Rhodes and John Cena, because he was the catalyst for John Cena's heel turn. And also in one of the biggest flops and fumbles in WWE history, The Rock didn't come back. And then he gaslit the fans, of course, on the Pat McAfee show several days later. We talked about that at length. But my point is, coming out of that, how did you feel about the night 2 generally? Despite all of the great wrestling and matches that had come before it. See how some one match, one event, one segment can ruin your entire view of the event, even if the rest of the event was objectively really good. If 80% of it was really good, but the 20% that was bad was so bad that it seemed to poison how you view the entire event. Well, that's what this was. That's what this Danhausen segment was. Poison. It was poison. And that's why I think why a lot of people are hammering this as one of the worst go-home shows in recent memory. I don't have very high expectations for SmackDown at this point. Like I said, and I opened the show with, we should just stop expecting go-home shows to be better than any other show. Yes, there may be more stars on it because it is the go-home show, but our expectations for go-home shows should just probably be lowered. Just, it's expected to be just like any other show. And that, again, that doesn't mean WWE is doing a good job or that that's just the way things are now and we're giving them a pass. But I'm saying if you're worried about your expectations not being met, well, maybe lower your expectations, because the company has given you enough of a sample size over the last several years to tell you, hey, yeah, we're not going to put our best foot forward for the go-home shows. Nor are we going to really get you really excited for the events. It's almost as if they're just promoting them because they have to check a box. But there's no real life in the promotion. There's no real soul to the matches or sense of urgency. Every match kind of flows the same, and everyone kind of has the same in-ring style, and everybody seems to have the same type of promo cadence at times and cute lines, and everybody seems to be feel like they're cut from the same cloth. And I know what you're going to say. Well, that's the WWE way. Well, how about you have somebody that doesn't do it the WWE way? Because then it will feel more authentic. It won't feel as if everyone's playing a role. Everybody feels like they're just playing a role in a play. All right. I know, lots of negativity tonight, but what do you expect? I'm not going to come on here, like I've said many, many times, and praise WWE for one of the shittiest segments I've ever seen. See, that's what's great about having an independent podcast. You can just tear into the company at a deep level and there's no repercussions. None. I have no masters to serve. Unlike Busted Open, which I know, again, very successful. Credit to them. They're doing a great job. They really are. If they weren't, they wouldn't be at the position they're at. But they have become state-run radio. That's what they are. And maybe they're making a bunch of money off of it. This is not a personal shot at anybody on Busted Open. This is not coming from a place of jealousy. Or anger for them. I'm happy for them. I understand the offer, teaming and partnering with the company that you have been talking about and maybe dreaming about being a part of forever. I understand it. But just understand that now the public is perceiving this as state-run radio. And in a lot of ways, as I've talked about in the recent past, it is, and it will be. But all right, I won't go down that road right now. Thanks, everybody. Lots to come this week. Preview, predictions, mailbag. Get your questions in, mailbag at WWEpodcast.com. And if you're Michael Cole, you have a special email you need to send it to. It's coalmine at WWEpodcast.com. So Michael Cole, if you're out there, that's the email. Not the WWE, but the WWE podcast. All right. See you guys. I will be talking to you in short order. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.